This is my run through 929 on normal. It's not perfect, but hopefully you can learn by my mistakes and not do the same sort of thing. Okay, I'll see you in the video. Hello and welcome, I'm Mystical, this is Mystical Gaming, we're back into Watcher of Realms. This is normal 929, this is my run through, this is the team I used. Okay, I used 2 tanks, 2 healers, then I used 2 tanky fighters and a Volker. Now we'll get back to that later. I used an AoE mage, I used a ranged fighter, and again I believe you can use anyone you like, pick normal or piercing damage, and then I used a marksman. So that's my team composition realistically, and I think you can sort of mix and match around that to try and get the best out of this as you can, although some compositions will make it easier than others, and of course your gear will make it easier for you as well. Right, let's jump into the fight. So essentially it comes in a couple of phases, and this first phase is the one I hate most. I really do. I dislike this to start with. It's not very good and not very clean, and I just don't really get into the swing of it. So I wait for my coin paste to come up. As soon as I've got 12, I put down my marksman and I get rid of the little cloth wearer. Whilst that's happening, I'm waiting for my coin to come back up, and once I hit enough to get my AoE mage down, I put the mage down just to take care of those adds on the top left. They can nuke them down quite happily. I am just waiting for the boss to arrive now. Now the boss will arrive at the bottom left of the screen, of the map, and then when he does, that's when I fire off the ultimate from my marksman. I also wait a while for the boss to have an attack on the mage. It's a free hit essentially, and he may as well hit up there as opposed to hitting anywhere else. Once he's done that, I then put the healer down and remove the mage. So there's the boss's hit, there's the healer down, now that's the mage being removed. Now, the boss would do 2 hits and then he would do a true damage hit. So we have the 2 hits on the healer, we then put down our next healer and our tanky fighter. In this case I'm going for Abomination. However, whoever you use for your tanky fighter needs to be able to take a hit of true damage of 73,000. So make sure you've got that as a minimum of your HP, because that's the hit you're going to take. So you want to be over that true damage, so your defense isn't going to matter as far as I'm aware. Now, the boss comes up with a little cooldown on him, and you can see the hourglass just above him. Once that disappears, Wrath goes down behind him, and we then start doing some DPS on the boss. This is probably the worst part for me. My DPS I don't think is that high. I'm probably scraping the barrel with it. After Wrath's gone down, I then place up Volker. Now Volker is there to aid in the healing, so remember, if you've got any healing effect on your gear with your fighters or whoever's DPSing, they will be healing themselves for a bit more, because that will affect them as it's the heal they are doing. Our next tank goes down, and our tank is there just to stop the mob actually coming through to the end portal whilst we continue DPSing the boss. Now we're down to about 50% and I can get my marksman back out. I put my marksman down and I face my marksman downwards. If I face him across the screen, he then targets the ad, and I don't want him to do that. I want to DPS the boss, because they'll all disappear once the boss is dead. So I want the boss down as quickly as possible. Essentially timer wise, all you've really got to worry about is the ads arriving from the top of the screen again and making it to the portal. I'm okay, but I could either put my AoE mage back up there, or I could put a tank towards the portal if I really wanted to, but I just keep cycling through my DPS and pushing that until I can get the boss down. I really don't like this part of the fight, so I want it over with essentially as quick as possible. I find this part quite awkward. I don't like where the boss puts the floor that pops up and does the AoE damage. I just don't like any part of this fight, or this phase of it, to be honest. The rest of it seems much more manageable, and it's more of a straightforward tank and spank, as long as you've got people in the right place doing the right job for you. So that's the boss down, and we then start transitioning into the next phase of the fight. As we transition into the next part of the fight, we sort of set up for the next few rounds. Essentially, this means that Abomination is facing down the screen, Volker is facing up the screen. My ranged fighter is facing towards the boss, but will turn the 90 degrees when the ads come in just above my ranged fighter. At that entrance point is one of my two tanks. The other entrance point to the left is my other tank. And then lastly, I place my healer, my second healer, going across the screen. That's pretty much everything covered. Now that leaves me one place more. I can place someone. Now as the ads arrive, I place a DPS down to take care of those ads. And I slowly rotate that DPS around, getting rid of the ads. You want to get rid of the ads before the boss dies, and that is about it really. So as soon as you've got rid of one pair of DPS or one set of ads coming in, remove your DPS, replace it with someone else, and then rotate round until you've got rid of all the DPS. This is about it. Kill the DPS. The boss swings his axe around doing his AoE, covering the whole screen, but essentially doesn't do a great deal of damage. You can easily heal through it. Once the ads are done, keep everyone on the screen. You don't need to recall everyone. I make an error there. Don't do the same as me. You really don't need to. So you can keep everyone on the screen once the ads are down. So as you can see, this is where it went wrong for me. I started to remove everyone, and then we'll see moments later that I have to start putting everyone back on the screen. I don't know what came over me, to be honest. I had a bit of a moment and I almost cocked my run up, and it was somewhat annoying. Really, the only person you really need to remove is your ranged fighter, because your ranged fighter will move down towards the bottom of the screen, but essentially that's it really. On the flip side, I did remove them in plenty of time to put them back up for the next fight, or the next phase of the fight, so there was no harm done. It was just annoying that I've done it anyway. So this is the new area that you're placing your ranged fighter in. Place them down and they're going to start damaging the boss. And again, much the same as the last fight, the boss is going to call forward ads. You need to kill the ads before you kill the boss, because otherwise you go into the next phase with the ads still about. Also, if the ads make it to the boss, they will increase the boss's attack, which we don't want. Now, it's much the same as before, however there are now two sets as opposed to the one set. She releases or calls forward for a hardening shell and summons all the spiders towards her at 70%. She then does it again at about 35%, so you need to get rid of all the ads that she calls forward at 70% before she hits the 35%. When she's hit that 35%, you need to get rid of all of those before you kill the boss. And that can be a little bit tricky, so go careful on the amount of DPS you're doing on the boss, and go careful on the amount of DPS you're doing on the spiders that she calls forwards. Why using my marksman as the first set of the person to get rid of the ads for me? Go careful when you use your ultimates. You can get stunned, which can make it mildly annoying for you, and just extend your time that it takes you to get rid of the ads. But once they're gone, and you're all good. I face my marksman to the right, and as soon as those ads are done, I can just actually recall him and place someone else down. Now I replace him with Wrath because, I don't know, I'm not really thinking ahead. I suppose it would have been much better to replace them with an AoE mage, but I don't do that, and there's a lot of things in this fight. If I could go back and change, I probably would, but essentially it goes through, because otherwise I wouldn't be showing it, and that would be it done. So there we are, that's almost the last ad done there, and then we'll see the swap over being done. Now I'm looking, also keeping an eye on the boss's health, because I now know that I've already used up 25% of the boss's health getting rid of the first pack, and I need to get rid of the next pack as quickly as possible. Now Wrath goes down, which is again a bad choice, and slowly starts DPSing them down. And it doesn't give me a lot of leeway now before the next lot are called forward. So we're now nipping past what is at 40% health for the boss, which doesn't give us long before she starts calling forward the next group of spiders. So here she goes now. You can see the bar come up, and she'll start the hardening shell summoning, and she'll start calling the spiders forward. Here they come, and I'm just getting rid of the last couple now. It doesn't matter on that left hand side if some get through, because you've got the tank to get past, then you've got Abomination to get past, then you've got Volker to get past. So numbers wise, you'll be all right. Now I let Raph stay there until he dies, it's not an issue. After that, I then put up my AoE Mage. Now I wish I'd done this earlier, this goes a lot better for me. So once the AoE Mage is done and killed off those, keep an eye on the boss's health and the boss's timer, because you want to recall some of your heroes, or most of them, to get ready for the next phase. Now I leave this too late, leave it much too late, and it doesn't cost me the fight, but it makes the fight much harder for me. And you want to make the fight as easy as possible, not as hard as possible for you. So I've swapped over there, I've gone back with Silas to try and nuke down the last of the few ads available, and then I've only got like 17% left on the boss now, and that's fast extinguishing. And I haven't started to call out any of my people yet. I need my heroes called out so I can then start getting them ready for the next part of the fight. So I should have called them away sooner to give myself more breathing space for the next phase. So if you're doing this, just remember, slow and steady is the way to go for this fight. Take control of everything, get your healing sorted, and then it is a nice slow movement. So I've got almost no health left on the boss, but I've still got almost 30 seconds left on some of the people that I want to recall. Now, as we transition into the next phase of the fight, this is where it doesn't necessarily go wrong, but it doesn't go as easy as I could have made it. So now recall Volker, now recall Abomination. There's the boss. He's just hitting the vortex, there's no great issues there, and then he calls forward his ads. And I'm trying to wait for my other tank to come up. He's now gone further than I want, my tank's not available. I've pulled up the other tank just to make life easier for myself, because I need a tank down. And then it's a bit of a rush to place everyone down. So I place Wrath down at the top to keep control of the ads coming in from the top, and I place the other tank down at the bottom. Again, the healers go down and the DPS goes down to keep going on the boss, and we try and get rid of the ads. Now the thing that the boss does, he goes through in cycles. So he does this lash out hit, then he goes into a sort of self-healing mode where he channels health off someone, and the tick rate is 78,000 a tick. It really is massive. And with his ads there as well, he keeps going back up. So his health bar is going in one direction, and that's right, which is a bit of a nightmare for me. And I start to think, well, maybe I'm actually going to lose this fight here. As luck would have it though, I brought Lasso with me. And for those of you in the comments, not comment, because I don't have one, but with him comes a bit of a bonus, because his ultimate does a heal reduction or a anti-heal buff, debuff on the boss. That comes in clutch for me. So essentially what I end up doing is throughout this fight, the boss does that big purple phase, then he does an AoE hit. If you've got Vortex's ultimate up, you can place the shield up when he does the big purple phase comes down, and you can pretty much live through it. My Vortex's rage regen isn't enough, so I can only do every other one. Here it is, there's the hit, there's everyone dead, or a lot of people dead, and then we start from the replacer. So I can only do every other one. If you brought someone like a Hollow, or someone could give rage regeneration, or you have more rage regen in your gear, you would make that much easier, and you could find a nice pleasant tick route, and you'd make this fight much easier for yourself. For me, it goes on for so long, even at this speed rate, that I end up pressing pause and having to take a break from it. Now I then end up coming up with the timing of getting Lasso up as often as possible to hit his ultimate while the boss is trying to do this health funneling at 78,000 a tick. That's my ultimate plan, and I push through with that, and I just place in the other DPS as and when I can, and that is essentially how I get through it. So your DPS needs to be higher than the boss can heal for, and he can heal for an incredible amount. So you may want to give that some consideration when you're picking your team, or if you get this far and then you find you haven't got enough healing, give it a bit of a consideration to bring in an anti-heal. Maybe for me, it's just I would have worked out better if I could have kept my DPS more alive by surviving the nuke from the purple haze that he does. So there's choices there to be made for you, and depending on your roster of heroes you've got, or depending on what sort of plan that you come up with. For me, after I got this far in the fight, I really wanted just to finish it. And this is where I end up having to take a pause. I'm going for so long now, I have to stretch my legs and actually take a break from it. And I'm starting to think, well, the boss is almost dead, and I've only got a little bit to go after that. What do I do after this? What if I've got enough DPS? When is my DPS online? Because I'm going to need it to DPS the boss down in a minute. And I've got all sorts of things running through my head that I'm now going to fail after I've been doing it for so long. So I don't want to rerun through this, and I'm happy in the knowledge that I'm never going to have to do it again, apart from my other account. But essentially, I won't have to do it again, which is good news. So we have to take a little breather, and then it's on to the next fight. So this is what I mean by the boss's healing. He was almost dead, and now he's almost back up to the, what, 25%? It's ridiculous the amount of tick over and heal he gets at 78%. And it is because I haven't got Lasser up there, or I haven't got any DPSing down. I haven't got Lasser up there doing that heal, anti-heal on him. So there's the big hit from the boss. This time we can get our DPS up there, and we can start getting ready for the next phase, because I want to time everything correctly for him. Now, what I don't remember is the next phase is very little magic damage, and I'm trying to sort of work out where my damage is coming from, and I make a bit of a mess of it. But essentially, it all goes all right. But do learn from my mistakes. So this time, when the boss does his big heal, we're now putting on Lasser's ultimate, and we're getting that anti-heal up there so we can keep DPSing him down, and this time we're getting him killed, and we can move on to the next phase. And the next phase, he will just start transitioning as more of a ball of energy, I suppose, towards the exit. It just goes slowly, and it's just a matter of getting as much DPSing on as possible. So I timed Silas's DPS to go down, and then put up Zilitude in the hope that she'll do something. I put Volker up behind her as well. It is just more of a mad panic on my part to get as much DPS going down as possible. And we get a bit on the go, but we don't get very much, to be brutally honest. And we've got to wait for everything to cool down and come back around again. So it is slow moving. And when you've got this far, you just don't want to fail at the last part when there's nothing you can do and you can't tank it. It's just moving along slowly. So you just try and do the bits of damage on it that you can and hope that it will be enough. So I think I'll get it down to around the 30% mark. My next obviously intelligent move, now I'm having a bit of a panic, is to place Volker down, and she's going to do the sum total of 0. She can't hit it, but she's there anyway. I think it just comforts me that I've got someone down. So I put up Zilitude in the hope that it might take long enough for the boss to get down and I can replace her. And that's my hope. And I'm also waiting for the ultimates to come up on my DPS down the end. I do check to make sure I've got the range to reach over, just because I get a little bit worried that I might not. And after that, it's essentially just waiting for the ball to come down. Now, again, you do want to make sure that you've got enough DPS here, because failing here would be a nightmare. And it was something that was actually going through my mind. Now, I don't want to do it, but we hope for the best. And it's just a matter with the ultimates waiting there. Just wait for it to come in range. And as soon as they do one hit, we can then just start triggering ultimates. Now, I do trigger Ferris off because he has a small buff to attack, so it's only 15%. It's not like the Dolores, it's 40%, but it's enough. That's it done. Don't have to worry about it anymore. There's the 3 stars, and it was 25 minutes, the best part of. In 25 minutes of my life I'm not going to get back, but hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and do it in a lot shorter period of time. Okay, now I hope that was helpful. If you did find it helpful, please leave a thumbs up, a like and subscribe. That would help me out massively. And that is the end of the normal campaign for you. You can now go on and collect the rewards. That was the team I was using. Gear wise, I haven't actually shown up the gear, but essentially everyone's in level 16 mythic and in some parts sets. You'll know how much damage you've got to do from the first phase. If you can't get the first phase done before everyone comes around, then you haven't got enough DPS. If your tanks get overhit, then you haven't got enough HP on them. But just make sure the first part with the first boss, you will need someone who can take a hit of 73,000 true damage, because that will come at you. Okay, thank you very much for your time. I'll see you all in a video again tomorrow. Happy gaming. Goodbye.